When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
Hey, Joe Watson here. You're listening to Crazy Train Radio, and it's a great show, so tune in and you'll enjoy the stories. He has a lot of good, great guests that he has, and you'll enjoy them.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This next guest is a two-time All-Star, a British Columbia Hockey Hall of Famer, a British Columbia Sports Hall of Famer, two-time Stanley Cup Champion, Philadelphia Flyers Hall of Fame, recently an author, because his book is going to come out, so we'll touch on that, and also happens to be known for a certain shorthanded goal against the infamous 1976 Soviet Red Army, because during that game with that goal, supposedly he set hockey back in Russia for 25 years, but yet here we are 40 plus years later, and they're still set back. But let's welcome Mr. Joe Watson. Joe, how are you, sir?
Oh, by God, what an introduction. That was a great job. You got everything down pat. Very good. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you.
I try once in a while, Joe. So
Yeah.
try to sound professional. But how are you?
Oh, fine. I've been very busy with this book. we had something down at one of the live casino last night. The Flyers had an event down there, and I had to go down there, and they had about 500 fans there, Flyer season ticket holders, and so I gave my book out to a lot of them, and the people are very excited. There's a lot of great stories in that book, relating back to my younger days as a young boy growing up in northern Canada and pursuing my career as a professional athlete, and all the trials and tribulations you go through when you're doing that, because everything doesn't go smoothly. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So you got to pick up yourself and get back in the nick of things. And so this is what the book is doing too. You know, you have good days and you have some bad days, you know, but the book. So you got to pick yourself up and move straight ahead. Don't look sideways, because somebody might be gaining on you. So I look straight ahead and just pursue whatever I have to do.
Well, I want to mention a title before we get into everything. The book is called Thundermouth, and according to Amazon, it comes out officially in April. So I will have links to that as well, folks. So make sure you grab a copy. That is for sure. You know, it's funny. And I had an opportunity, I guess, last year to talk to your brother, Jimmy. And can you believe, when you think back over everything, that a boy from British Columbia ended up moving to Philadelphia and have had the career and life you've had?
Well, you know, prior to coming to Philadelphia, I played in Boston with the Bruins, and in 1966 and 65, I played 4 games with them in 65, and then my first full career in the league was 66, and broken with Bobby Orr, who I think is the finest player I ever laced a pair of skates on. My little partial towards him because he was my roommate and a teammate at the same time, and so we're still close. We talk quite a bit. In fact, he did the forward on my book, and but honestly, when I came down here, first of all, I had quite an introduction to Philadelphia. We had training camp in Quebec City, and then we came to Philadelphia, and so I'm very inquisitive. I sat in the front of the bus, and we're coming over the old Penrose Avenue Bridge, and as we got down to the bottom of the bridge on the right-hand side, they saw this machine. So I said to the bus driver, "What's that machine doing?" He says, "Oh, it's grinding up body parts." And I thought he was referring to car parts, but he was referring to the mafia on that. He says, when they get rid of people, they put the body in the car and they grind them together. I said, "You're kidding me." He says, "No." So that was my first introduction to Philadelphia. I said, "Holy God, what are we doing here?"
Godfather, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
You can act like a man! What's the matter with you?
But anyway, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And our first year, the same day as the incident on the right hand, the machine that was grinding up all the body parts, we had a parade down Broad Street, and there were more people in the parade that were watching it going down Broad Street. I said, "Hell, we're not going to be here very long." And there was a guy named James Tate, was the mayor of Philadelphia, and he doesn't even show up for the event to welcome us. I never forgot that. So 7 years later, we win the cup, and Frank Rizzo's the mayor, and we go to the chambers in Philadelphia, in the City Hall there, and he has this function, and I was kind of inebriated, and I said, so I got up and I says, "Where the hell was the mayor 7 years ago? We came to this town and he didn't welcome us." And he said, "Well, don't blame me. I wasn't the mayor." Like Rizzo saying. Yeah.
Well, both parades are infamous. And I was going to ask you about that welcome parade and such, but you already went there. But then obviously the cup parades were something else back to back. But, you know, it's funny that, and I'll start obviously, well, you know, before I get into the hockey stuff, there was a rumor I recently just heard. Well, I shouldn't say rumor because it came from your mouth. You were on the Preston and Steve show, which is a local radio show in 93.3. For those who aren't from the Philadelphia area, you can listen online and such. But you were talking about being on a natural food diet since the 70s.
Yeah.
So is that why you look so good?
I don't know if that's the reason, but I work out pretty extensively, and I work out 3 days a week. I keep myself in good shape, and I don't eat much meat. My wife Jamie, who is my second wife, she's a vegetarian kind of, and so I'm kind of a vegetarian. I eat a lot of yogurt, cottage cheese, a lot of vegetables. Like I had my cereal this morning, and I had all whole wheat cereal with some with a banana and a pear in it, and of course milk, and I just watch my diet, and I don't eat, very seldom do I ever eat. If I do eat meat, it might be a burger once in a while, or a vegetarian burger. But my friend owns a buffalo farm out in Kennett Square, so every once in a while I'll go out there and get some meat from him, but it'll be just burger. And that might be every 2 months, 3 months when I eat a burger. But other than that, I just try to keep myself in tip-top shape and work out, and I guess that's why I feel good about myself, and I know I'm up there in age, but things are worked out very well for myself.
Well, that is good. And well, speaking of keeping in shape and stuff, you were recently involved with the alumni game in Philadelphia, and they did it to honor the first cup against Boston.
Right.
And it was the 50th anniversary of that. And I heard they did something special for you for that game.
Oh, did they ever? It was Brad Marsh's idea. You know, he came to me, he said, Joe, if you play, it'll be seven decades of Flyers hockey. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you play for the Flyers for 13 years, and then you run the alumni I ran the alumni hockey team. I started it in 1984, and we played so many games. We've probably raised $3.5–4 million, gave it away to charity over those years. And of course, we went to 8, 9 foreign countries all in Europe to play hockey, and wherever we went, all the people want to talk about the Russian game in 1976. How much of an impact, I mean, we made in these people, and these are Flyer fans in Europe. Wherever we went, we saw people with Flyer jerseys on. We were in Russia 5 years ago, and Putin, we were invited by the Russian Federation of Hockey, I guess it was, and wherever we went, we got treated royally, and we saw people with Flyer jerseys. The unfortunate thing I couldn't do was tell Mr. Snyder, because whenever we went to a foreign country, he always wanted to know if we saw people with Flyer jerseys on them. In every country we went to, Jonathan, we saw people with jerseys, and especially in Russia. We played in St. Petersburg a game, and there was over 13,000 people at the game. And there had to be 25 to 30 people that had Flyer jerseys on at that game. And then we played in a place called Kazan. And same there, there's only 6,500 seats in the building, but I could not believe it. We see people in these foreign countries wearing Flyer jerseys. So that goes to show you how popular the Flyers are, plus the Broad Street Bullies. Everybody, and when we were in Russia, all they want to do is talk about the Russian Flyer game in '76 when they, we kind of annihilated them. We beat them badly, 4-1. Could have beat them 10-1 if Trechek had to play great in that game. We outshot them 49-13, and if he hadn't played well, it would have been blowout. It was a blowout anyway. But anyway, that's all they want to talk about. I was interviewed because I was the only player played in that game in '76 for the Flyers, and also there wasn't one Russian played in that game in '76 that played against us. So obviously those Russians, the way they live, they drink a lot of vodka and they drink beer for a chaser.
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
And they don't live very long, unfortunately. But they're still but they're very nice to us. They treated us royally, and we thought Putin was going to play in the game when we played in the Red Square, and because we heard the promoter said possibly he's going to play. Well, he never played.
Yeah,
he didn't play.
But speaking of the alumni games, before I get to Russia and everything else, yeah, could you imagine when you talk about the popularity and such that when you started the team in '84, you get paid like $500 and get like $25 to each guy and $200 in jerseys and such.
Yeah.
Then, could you imagine what it's become? And like you said, you've donated millions and such over the years for different organizations.
Yeah, absolutely right. We got to the point now, we used to, like, we'd go to these foreign trips to countries, and we'd have 60, 70 people would come with us. Fans plus our team. And the guys would bring their wives, and we're very well receptive in the foreign countries. They were so good to us. They treated us royally wherever we went, and it's just because of the image of the Broad Street Bullies and the Flyers themselves. Because wherever we, like I said, wherever, I'm being very redundant in talking about it, but wherever we went, we just had so many people follow us and come to hotels we were staying and wanted autographs and so on and so forth. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of that 76 Soviet game, there was a rumor I heard, and I don't know how true it was, but it wouldn't surprise me with the Broad Street Bullies. I'll put it that way. But at the time, the commissioner was Clarence Campbell.
Right.
And apparently he came in and said something along the lines of, you guys got to hold up the standard of hockey in North America and all. And he pretty much, or somebody from the team pretty much said, yeah, you better get the f out of here.
More or less, that's what happened. Yeah. Because he didn't like us. He thought we were bad for the game of hockey, but wherever the Flyers went, we sold out every building we played in. And nobody else can claim that. And when we won the cup, he came on the ice very reluctantly to present the cup. And I don't think he was that proud. But you know what? We were the best thing that happened to the game of hockey at that time. And I remember we won our first two cups. And the second cup, we had the parade down Broad Street. And the best part about the second parade was streaking was in then. And so, yes, there people are running all around with nothing on, climbing these poles downtown. And I said, holy mackerel. This is something, lo and behold, I'll never see this again in my life. And but anyway, when you look at that parade, you see all these people running around. There's a lot of things dangling here, there, everywhere. Oh, my God. It's quite a sight to behold.
Well, I'd be afraid to dangle because I'm Jewish and I get everything half off, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But you talk about how Russia was, it could have been 10-1, but the score ended up being 4-1.
Right.
And, there's a lot of tongue in cheek when we talk about that game and stuff. But when you think about the history of the game and such, for a nice period of time, the Soviet Red Army team was a very good team for like 20, 25 years. From somebody who played hockey and played against them and everything else like that, why was that team as good as they were for so long?
Oh, boy. You know what? In 1980, when the Americans played the Russians in New York, just about 2 weeks prior to the Olympics starting, I remember the Russians beat the Americans 10-2. And a game, exhibition game in New York. And I watched the game. I said, holy God, these guys move the puck so well, but nobody's getting in their way and nobody's hitting. And the reason they weren't because they couldn't catch them. So I remember when we played them in 76, they were the same type of team. And they had all the players that we played against in 76 playing in 1980 against the Americans. And nobody was touching him, but Freddie Sherwood, our coach, devised a system. This is the way we're going to play the Russians, and this is the way we're going to beat them. And Freddie devised this system, and it really worked to a T. He had our defense stand up at center ice, and then the forwards come in, would slide in behind us and pick up any loose pucks that if we took one of the Russians out, we'd pick up the loose puck and go the other way, and we'd catch them off balance. And that worked to a T. Freddie had this system devised, and he says, they have the Iron Curtain of Russia. We're going to show them the Iron Curtain in North America. And Freddie, he scouted the range. He scouted the Russians. He went to Russia in 74, 75 after we won our first cup and talked to the Russian coaches over there. And I guess they exchanged systems and so on and so forth. And Freddie tried to implement, I think, the system that he bought from Russia, but it didn't work because we couldn't skate like them. And they worked very hard, and their training system was so different than ours. They did a lot of ground training. And we watched some of the film and everything else. I says, Craig, you can't expect us to be doing something like that. And we didn't do what he wanted to try to implement, but Freddie just figured everything out, and this is the way we're going to beat them, not the way we're going to play them. This is the way we're going to beat them. And there was a big difference there. And but Freddie was ahead of his time as far as a coach goes. And the Russians were so skilled, but they weren't skilled enough to beat us.
Exactly. But there was always that or I should say, there was that famous hit that Eddie Van Ampe leveled against the gentleman whose ankle was broke by Bobby Clark in the famous 72 series. Yeah.
Karmalov, yeah.
Yeah. So was that something that was maybe accidentally on purpose, or was that?
Eddie made a beeline for him out of the penalty box. And he come over and took him down, but he didn't hit him. If you look at the play, he didn't hit him that strenuously. They were just looking for a way to get off the ice. They didn't want to play this game. And so they decided to go off the ice. They go in their dressing room. Mr. Snyder goes down and tells them, listen, if you don't come back and play, you're not going to get your 200,000 rubles that you have come and play this game.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Russians came back and played, and we beat them. And, I've got a shorthanded goal in the second period against them. And after the game, Freddie comes in, he says, Joe, by scoring that shorthanded goal, you're going to set the Russian program back 20 years. And you know what? They still haven't recovered.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. Like I said, I had an opportunity to talk to your brother Jimmy last year, and he told a pretty cool story, and I'd like to get your perspective on it. And he mentioned that obviously you were here in Philadelphia already playing with the Flyers and such, and he took a break from playing hockey and was trying to figure out what he was going to do next for his life. So he came down to visit you. So what was your perspective on that story when he came down to visit and then decided to pursue hockey some more?
Being a big brother, and when you're one of your brothers is, I guess, trying to figure out what he wanted to do in his life, and he came down and visited us. He was here with me for 3 or 4 weeks, I think it was, and took him around and went to all the games, and he enjoyed watching the games. And he came to Montreal with us. The Flyers were kind to let him come to Montreal with us and watch the game and go back. But he had a different perspective of the game after he came here, and he realized he wanted to be an athlete and a hockey player, and that his way was, to go back to Calgary where he was with the team, and told Scotty Monroe, who was the coach and general manager of the team, that he wanted to come back and play. And he went back and played, and then he became a 3rd-round draft pick of the Flyers a couple of years later, and everything is icing on the cake. Jimmy is a great skater. In fact, there's a lot of guys, when you watch the game today, if you're not a skater, you're not going to be playing this game. And I don't think a lot of my teammates and myself, including myself, could play in this game. It's so fast. But Jimmy is one of the guys that could keep up with these guys because he was an excellent skater, but he got his life straightened away, and Scotty Monroe helped him tremendously. And I think him coming down here and seeing what the pro life is like and everything else, he says, this is what I want to do. And so I'm glad he chose hockey, and of course the Flyers drafted him, which is really good. And so I was able to take care of him when he came here.
Exactly. And it's funny that he's involved at the rink out in the suburbs now.
Yeah. It's a very successful rink in Aston Iceworks, it's called. They have 4 ice surfers. In fact, I'm going there this Saturday to sign books. But they have a nice facility there. They good management and everything else, and they know what they're doing, and that's why they're very successful. They've been successful for many, many years, but I'm glad he built his rinks and where he did, because him and there was another partner of his went around and they looked at various areas to build a rink, and they chose Aston, which was really a good move for them.
Absolutely. Going back to the 74 Cup.
Yeah.
What was so tough with the Rangers, because they were a tough team at the time?
Yeah.
Before you went on to play in Boston, because they had like 6 days off. But What was it about the Rangers that were so tough during that year?
Well, the Rangers, I thought they were the best team in the league that year. They were more skilled than anybody. And I don't think they were used to the aggressiveness of the game. They were kind of a team that could skate and they could freewheel, move the puck well. And they had great shooters, good defense, good goaltending. And the only way we were going to beat them, we had to be physical. And it was a very physical series. If you remember, maybe you weren't around then, Jonathan. You probably weren't, but anyway,
No.
it was a physical series. And that's the only way we're going to beat them, is be very physical with them. And every game was so close. Oh boy, oh boy. I remember we won our first 2 games in Philly, then we go to New York and we lose the next 2. And then we come back and then we beat them, and then we go up there and they beat us. And the 7th game in Philadelphia, we won 4-3. And the thing about that is the Boston had played Chicago, and I think they beat them in 5 games or something, and they had 7 days off prior to us playing against Boston. And we beat the Rangers on a Sunday afternoon. And I remember we had to go to Boston Monday to start the series Tuesday. So we go to Boston Monday and get to Boston. I pick up the Boston Globe. And the headlines were, "This is anticlimactic. We just beat a better team that gets the finals, that we're going to play for the final Stanley Cup." And I said, "Who the hell made that statement?" I looked, it was Freddie Shero. So I go to Freddie and say, "Freddie, what are you talking about? We haven't beat them in 7 years. You're right, Joe, and they're building." And he says, "You're right. We're not going to show them any respect." Because a lot of teams I think, were intimidated by the Bruins because they were a big physical team, and we were somewhat of the same type of team, and we're not going to show them any respect. And we go out there and Freddie said, "What we're going to do, we're going to shoot. The buildings are warm. We're going to shoot the puck in Orr's corner, make him go back and get it. And every time he touches the puck, we want to get in his way, make him exert some energy. He might dominate the first 3 or 4 games of the series, but he won't be able to dominate the whole series because we're going to try to wear him down." And that's basically what happened. I remember after the final game when we beat them in Philly 1-0, I talked to him. He says, "You guys wore me right out. I was so tired." Because he was playing 35, 40 minutes a game, or
Yeah.
And he said, "You just wore me out." I says, "Well, that was the plan. I know the unwritten rule is never to shoot the puck in your corner because we didn't want you to touch it, but we're going to change it." Freddie said, "We're going to change it. We're going to go after him and shoot the puck in his corner, make him go back and get it and exert some energy, and eventually it'll wear him down." And that's what happened. He didn't dominate in the last couple of games like he dominated in the first 4 games in the series. And it was Freddie's idea. Freddie was very, very smart man.
So you guys actually, you won back-to-back cups and went back to a 3rd cup in a row.
Yep.
And obviously lost that one. But, talking to people, because I was born in 84, but obviously I've learned about the game, watch all the old footage, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And some people will talk about that if Bernie didn't get hurt that year,
yep,
you guys might have won a 3rd cup. Do you think that's pretty accurate?
Well, I'll tell you what, if we had McLeish and Bernie in that series, I mean, every game we lost by 1 goal. I mean, the last game we lost 5-3, they scored an open net goal. But Bernie would have made a difference and McLeish would have made a difference because McLeish scored a lot of big goals for us. And McLeish got hurt in February that year and never played the rest of the year. And Bernie got hurt, I think he got hurt in our first game in the first playoff game or something. I think it was around that time he got hurt and he didn't play. But I think he would have made a difference. They definitely would have made, because we got beat by 1 goal. And I remember the first game in Montreal, we were up 2-0 about the first 12 minutes of the first period. And they eventually fought back and they beat us with 1.5 minutes to go. Guy Lapointe shot this puck from the boards on the hash marks, the circle there, right against the boards, right along the ice. And Wayne Stevenson was our goalie, and Wayne played very well for us. But, it was a bad goal, and it went in, and then they beat us 4-3 in the second game. Lafleur scored from the blue line on a wrist shot, and Steph missed it. And then we come back to Philly, we get beat 3-2, and there was a guy named Pierre Bouchard, hadn't scored a goal all year. And he scored a couple of goals, I think, in that series there. And then the final game, we got beat 5-3 with an open net goal by them. But I just think they would have made a difference. Bernie and Ricky McLeish definitely would have made a difference in the playoffs for us. And who knows, we could have went 7 games with them and possibly won the whole thing, but we didn't.
Final 2 questions for you, Joe, and I appreciate the time. Like we mentioned early in the start, the new book that he's got out is Thundermouth.
Right.
We'll have an Amazon link and all that for an opportunity to purchase the book if you wish. Check it out. He's got great stories, folks. But my final 2 questions would be: how much time do you spend watching the current game and the Flyers?
I watch it a lot. I watch hockey a lot, but especially the Flyers. I love the way the Flyers skate. And the coach has done an incredible job with this young team of players. And I remember going to training camp this year in September over there watching. I said, "Holy God, I can't believe how fast these guys are going." And I said to the guy, there was about 4 or 5 of us went over, and I said, this team is going to surprise a lot of teams. And I think we've been the surprise of the National Hockey League. And I attribute a lot to the coaching staff. I mean, the head coach and his coaching staff. And so I look for bigger and better things. And this team has a good chance to make the playoffs, which I think they will make the playoffs. And they can put a lot of pressure on people because the way they play, they forecheck hard all over the ice, not one specific area. They are all over the ice, and they can skate. And the biggest thing about this game today, Jonathan, is skating. And these young guys can move, man. Holy mackerel. I mean, I never dreamed of moving as fast as they did. I don't know, our top speed might have been 15 miles an hour. These guys go 20, 25 miles an hour. And they go for 40, 45 seconds, and they're off the ice. The next line comes out, and the next line does the same thing as the line previous to them. So it's really exciting to watch this team, and I follow them very closely, and I haven't missed a game this year at home yet.
Nice. And final question for you. And I notice it most with the Flyers alumni, but it's across the board with all 4 sports, major sports, I should say.
Right.
But what is it about Philadelphia that after your careers that a lot of guys tend to stay here, raise their families, just, you know what I mean? They may end up making Philadelphia and the region home. So what is it about, at least for you? I know you and your brother here, Bernie's here, Brian Propp was here until he moved to Florida. There's just a lot of guys who weren't from the area ended up making this home.
Well, I think one of the reasons the Flyers, especially the Broad Street Bully team, there's about 11 or 12 guys still live in the area here. And the reason being, I says, a lot of the guys married a lot of the guys, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but some guys met their wives here, like Don Selesky met his wife here, and Bernie met his wife here, and or wives, I should say. Other people have, but it's just the way that you're accepted in the community. The Broad Street Bullies are an iconic name, and they'll always be probably the most popular team ever in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm referring to other sports too, because of what we did for this city and how the fans treated us royally. And it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's what I feel. If you put the efforts in, and people go to work every day and they earn their money, they work hard to make their money, they want to go to a game, especially women, and they can release their frustrations out on hockey. And women love the fierceness of the game. They love to see a fight and so on and so forth. And of course, our Broad Street Bully team did a lot of that. And
you sure about that?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I think we're accepted in this community. Joe Conklin, I was at a function there recently, the Philadelphia Sports Writers Hall of Fame, and he's talking, he says, there'll never be another team in Philadelphia like the Broad Street Bullies. Doesn't matter where you go. A friend of mine just came back from Czechoslovakia here about 6 months ago, and he landed in Prague, and the cabbie asked him where he's from. He says, "Oh, Philadelphia." And the guy said, "Home of the Bullies." And my buddy said, "What?" He said, "Home of the Broad Street Bullies." Now, this is in Czechoslovakia. And I was flying up to I was flying from Toronto to Vancouver about 7-8 years ago, when the history of the Broad Street Bullies came out, and it was a film. And so I'm flying, and I get in my seat, and this guy sits next to me. He's an Aussie, Australian guy. So we're talking about this and that, and we're having our Bubba Louie's on the plane, having a good time. And the Aussies are like Canadians. They love their beer. So we're sitting there talking. Then the guy asked me, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I work for a hockey team, the Flyers." He says, "You work for a hockey team of the Flyers?" I don't know anything about hockey, but I watched this thing. I was in New York for a week. In my hotel, I watched the Broad Street Bully show. I said, "You did?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Were you in?" I said, "Oh, I was in there." And I was talking about my dad. My dad had all this cow shit all over his boots when he came to our first year in the Stanley Cup in '74. And I was the guy that mentioned that my dad had all this stuff all over him. And he was a butcher. But he came down here unexpectedly. We didn't know he was coming. And he showed up, and he had these overalls on. And he had these woolen underwear on. It was about 95 degrees out. And he had a box, which is a suitcase with rope tied around his shoulder. And so Dad comes into the dressing room, and after the game we beat Buffalo, in '75 it was. And I said, "Oh, Dad, you smell. My God, you got to get in the shower." So Dad goes like the Galloping Gourmet, takes his equipment off, takes his clothes off, goes running in the shower. And some of my teammates are in there showering at the same time, and they didn't know who this guy was. And I told them it was my dad. And you know what? Dad was very, very popular. I still have so many people talk to me about my dad and ask me how my dad, the type of guy my dad was and everything else. And people expect honesty and hard work. And that's what we were. We worked hard, and we were honest about things that were happening on the ice as well as off the ice. And that's why we're so well accepted in this area and always will be. The Broad Street Bullies are an iconic team and always will be, not only here, but all over the world.
Absolutely. And to think both of you guys who were British Columbia boys ended up making Philadelphia home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, there was the running joke for years amongst, especially those era Flyers, that when they got drafted or whatever, where the hell's Philadelphia? They had to pull out a map and stuff and try to figure out where the hell they were going.
I remember and Johnny Carlson. I was a big baseball fan. I remember watching the All-Star game, and Johnny Carlson, I think he hit a home run, and I don't know what inning it was, maybe the extra innings, and the National League beat the American League, but Johnny Carlson hit a home run. That's the only thing I knew about Philadelphia when I heard I was coming to Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joe Watson, thank you so much for the time, sir.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me, and great show.
Appreciate it.
By gosh, it was really good, and thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll see you around one of these days.
Well, since you mentioned it, I'm going to have to get the info, but I definitely want to come out to Ashton and